Let's talk now to Dr. Julie Posetti, who's Global Director of Research at the International Centre for Journalists. It carried out their own study with UNESCO to assess the scale and impacts of online violence targeting women journalists. She's there in Oxford. Welcome here to the programme. Your reaction to what Mariana has found, because in a lot of ways it echoes what your research was showing as well, doesn't it?
Indeed. I mean, we studied over 800 journalists, women journalists around the world. Mariana was one of them, in fact. And journalists, particularly women journalists, are really at the epicenter of this scourge of online violence, because journalists, represent a threat to disinformation, a threat to political power narratives that are designed to obfuscate truth. And so as a journalist, Mariana herself, we found, was targeted in ways that were designed to undercut her credibility. We actually studied around 77,000 messages on Twitter that were directed at Mariana, and we found that they were also very sexualized, sexually explicit threats of violent rape and murder, for example, that she experiences on a daily basis. And that was a pattern that we found repeated all around the world among the journalists we studied.
You talk of pattern, but you started that answer by talking about journalists, male and female. A simple question: why are women targeted more than men?
So this epidemic of online violence we see as particularly gendered. It involves misogynistic hate, threats of abuse, threats of violence. It intersects with disinformation and digital security and privacy threats. We know that disinformation purveyors, and in the context of increasing authoritarianism around the world, gender is used as a weapon in the disinformation wars. And so women journalists are particularly targeted, especially those who report on disinformation, like someone like Mariana, for example, because they represent not only truth and critical independent journalism that is to be cut down, but also they're women putting their heads above the parapet. And that makes them targets, shockingly and sadly. Misogyny is alive and well.
And what did your research tell you about the impact all of that is actually having?
It's having a chilling effect. I mean, we called one of our reports from this study the chilling, because it's causing women, unfortunately, to retreat. Sometimes in the case of journalists, it's causing them to hand over bylines, to ask to be taken off air. Many women are standing up bravely, and through journalism, such as that we've just seen, speaking about this problem, but it is causing women to hide their faces, to mute their voices, and that is a serious threat to freedom of expression, press freedom and gender equality.
So that is the impact. You've taken us through what is actually happening. In terms of the platforms themselves, what did you find?
Well, we found that despite much publicity about the work that they're doing to try and stem this problem, there is little effective action. So the Facebook example, which has just been cited, where journalists have for the first time been told that it's no longer okay for people to threaten them with murder on Facebook, for example. I mean, it's taken years and years of lobbying to achieve that outcome. There is a lack of capacity to escalate. There is a lack of human intervention. There is the problem of the algorithmic inflammation of hate speech against women journalists. And there's also a real need for an approach to be taken that reflects the intersecting roles of racism, and to be able to respond to this problem in languages other than English is a whole other battle.
Dr. Posetti, we have to leave it there, but thank you. Fascinating to hear you go through some of your research. Thanks so much for joining us on the programme.